Before you get into today's episode, I want to talk to you real quick about the Boston Music Awards. There are so many awesome folks out here keeping the music community vibrant. Musicians, venues, productions folks, podcasts. That's a little hint. And this is a great way for people to get recognized. So if you could go to bostonmusicawards.com and go to voting, cast your vote, you're giving back to the community. You're letting them know that you see them. And if you feel so inclined, you could vote for the Struggling Artist Podcast with Trev Allen. We're at the very bottom of the list. That's okay. That's where I like to be. So again, go cast your vote at bostonmusicawards.com. Thank you for nominating us once again. Hey guys, Trev from the Struggling Artist Podcast, and I want to talk to you real quick about Struggling Artist Record Club. The Struggling Artist Record Club is a vinyl record subscription service where I hunt and curate the best punk and punk-adjacent music out there and mail their record to your door each and every month. Imagine finding your new favorite band from across the country without ever having to leave the house. It doesn't get much better than that. The excitement of discovering new music just got that much easier. As a member of the Struggling Artist Record Club, you are going to receive some of the best music you've ever heard from bands you may never even heard of. Whether you've been collecting records for years or just starting out, the Struggling Artist Record Club is designed specifically for you. And right now, all new members get a Struggling Artist Record Club exclusive along with the monthly selection. So head to StrugglingArtistRecordClub.com, pick a membership, and start building that collection today.
You're listening to the Struggling Artist Podcast.
People need to be entertained. They need the distraction.
With your host, Trev Allen.
I wish to God that somebody would do something to block out the voices in my head for 5 minutes.
Hello, everybody. Today I am speaking with Emily and Jacob from the podcast The Caliginous Chronicles. I have to sound that word out. I'm having a hard time with it. I know this couple very well. They're dear friends of mine. I'm so excited they're doing this podcast together. If Jacob's name sounds familiar to you, Jacob was on the podcast a couple times. Once when he was still with modernhorrors.com, and then another time with just him where we talked about running and his business and, you know, all that stuff. I love them to death. I'm happy they're on. What the podcast is, let me explain what the podcast is real quick. It is a story podcast where you will get, once a month, you will get a new short story narrated by Emily, written by Jacob, and they send it out to Luke Rodriguez, also of Modern Horrors, also been on this podcast a couple times, he does the sound engineering on it, right? Sound engineering, sound production, and all that stuff. It's amazing. I've been reading these short stories for years from Jacob, and I'm so happy to see them come to life in audio format. It's truly a wonderful thing, and I love everyone involved in this project so much. A lot of me becoming a podcaster was because of these people. At the end of the day, they were encouraging. I wrote for Modern Horrors, and and Emily's just an amazing person, even though she cheats at cards. We'll let the episode get into that. This is episode 297 of the Struggling Artist Podcast. Struggling with the Caliginous Chronicles. One of the other projects I do for this channel is like a MTV News kind of thing, but for independent people. You know what I mean? People that you're not going to hear about. And the first episode was 12 minutes long, and it took me about 8 hours to edit. So, but that's me being
hard pass.
That's me being meticulous on me, right? Because I'm reading this stuff and I want to cut out every little and you know what I mean. So
sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, I miss the Hopkins and the Hopkins family, and I'm so happy that you guys are here. And I'm so happy
to be here.
I'm so happy you guys are doing this project. Yeah. I mean, I can't even. First off, hold on before we start. Sorry, Emily, I'm going to apologize to you because I've been talking about having you on this podcast for like 4 years. And
please.
And we're just now getting around to it, and I apologize for that.
Let's be real. This might be the most interesting thing I've done in that 4 years.
I don't know. You got to put up with this guy, so
Exactly.
I mean, she's lucky in that,
Yeah.
Lucky.
Now, with that said, Jacob, does Emily still cheat at cards?
Oh yeah. That game is the cheatingest game you ever did see in your life.
Which one, may I?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not cheating.
That's cheating,
bro. She's evolved though to start cheating at Skippo, so it's crazy.
Oh man,
I do not skip. I do not.
A 7-year-old child gets cheated by her.
Hey, you gotta teach them young though. Life's not all about rainbows and sugar cookies or whatever the saying is,
Sure. Unicorn farts and rainbows.
That was the other name we were considering for the podcast.
Yeah.
It's a different set of stories, but whatever.
Yeah, I know. I like it. So, but like, all right. So I guess, yeah, let's get into the podcast. You guys have to pick a name that I had to go like figure out how to pronounce, right?
Emily can pronounce it for you.
All right, go ahead.
Caliginous Chronicles.
Yeah, I spelt it phonetically on my paper here.
You have to.
Smart.
Well, I mean, in fairness, and we talk a little bit about this in our Behind the Veil Patreon content, but basically, when we were coming to the naming part of this, Jacob hates that part of things, titles, that kind of thing. So, I went onto the interwebs and was just like, well, I enjoy alliteration. And we were, we knew this, short stories. So it's like, okay, well, how do we want to do that? And I kind of landed on the word chronicles. And then I was like, okay, well, let me find a word that goes well with that. And so after some playing around and thesaurusing, we landed on Caliginous. And we were like, okay, I think that's it.
Yeah.
And that's how we got there.
You may be
it was a new word to us too. It's not one that I've like used ever.
Are you the only, now. I think you're the only Caliginous in podcasting. I mean,
surely, right? Surely.
I can't imagine.
like I was like typing it in and I'm like, am I spelling it wrong? Because nothing was coming up. And then
exactly.
And then when I hit enter, the only thing that popped up was your logo. So I was like, all right, you got to be the only one.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I mean, it definitely, made it easy when it came to getting the email and getting the handles on the social media.
Socials wasn't a problem.
Now, is the in the name or no?
Technically
it is, but for, handles and stuff, we have it out.
Let me tell you something. I hate that I have the in my name because it has to be. It's in everything. It's in my website now, and it's on the email. You know what I mean? It just makes.
Yeah.
Struggling artist is kind of a long name anyway, but now
sure.
it's and then so like everything is the Struggling Artist Podcast, and I'm like, that's such a huge name. But I'm at a, like where I'm like I said, I'm a few years into this now, and like I'm like the top Google part. You know what I mean? So,
sure.
So
yeah, you can't mess with that SEO. Yeah, I mean, for us, it's like we call it that in the podcast art. We call it that, when we say it on the podcast. But then everything else is without the pretty much. So
yeah. Emily, have you done podcasts before?
I mean, I've been like a guest on Horror Virgin and like done some other stuff like that. But really, no. I mean, I'd never done my own, maybe I showed up on Modern Horrors. I don't even know. Maybe.
And what about doing like narration and stuff like that? Have you done that?
Yeah. So like in my past job, that was actually something I did quite a bit of. I did a lot of voiceover stuff, especially for professional development content. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of where I got to find my love for it. And then even in my current 9-to-5, I get to do it again. Same reason, marketing and professional development content. So it was always something that I was interested in doing. And really, that's kind of why we decided to really get this off the ground. Like Jake was like, I want to write more. I need something that is going to allow me to write more. And he was like, you, I know, want to do more talking into a microphone stuff. You know, what can we do? And that was kind of it.
Jacob, these stories, the first 2 episodes, those were written a long time ago, right?
A long time ago.
I remember
Matter of
reading
fact,
that.
I got to thinking, dude. I think we talked about it on your podcast many moons ago.
Probably.
When I was first writing those.
Yeah. I remember reading those, and I was like, and
Yep.
hearing them come to life. With Emily, your voice is perfect for narration, by the way. You do a
Thank you.
great job. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. But the story is like, I remember me actually reading them. I printed them out and read them. You know what I mean? And I was like,
shit, yeah.
you know, because you were like, hey, I'm working on something. And again, that was 4 years ago, five years ago. Yeah.
Easy, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, whoa, I remember this story. And like the second episode, and I didn't write the name down because I'm so bad at podcasting. I don't know how I'm still doing this.
You're fine, a new host, but what's funny is that one tends to get more listens we found.
So far.
Yeah.
Wait, a new
host.
I thought a new host was the first one.
We released them at the same time, basically, because
okay.
they're the first one, Passenger, was so short, you know, so we went ahead and did a double release.
All right, the Passenger was the one I was like, I have so much like turmoil with that one because like I'm like, what is it? What's in the core? You know, and why is that?
We've got a lot of text messages and messages about
Dude,
that. Like,
funny.
who is the passenger?
Yeah, that's out of the blue.
That's good though for many reasons. One, you could do a callback later on, but mostly whenever I write, I try to like outside of my essays, like when I write fiction, like I want the reader, you know, or whatever the project is, whatever it's like a short film or whatever. I want that person who's the consumer of it. You know, I want them to think. I want them to try to figure out something. You know, so I think that's awesome. And yeah, but I don't like it when it happens to me.
Sure. That's for someone else to have to deal with, not for Trev to have to deal with.
No, it's funny what the brain will start to conjure, right?
I mean, that's what I think about. Like, horror is the best in a shorter format. That's just my opinion. Yeah. And I think also if you can lead someone down a trail and then all of a sudden just abandon them and let their imagination try to fill the blanks, I think that's where it gets the most disturbing, as opposed to me trying to conjure something disturbing. It's like, let me just lead you that direction, and then you're going to fill in blank with your worst terrible nightmare.
Yeah.
That reminds me, there was a short that it was a horror short that you and I had watched, and it could have been for Modern Horrors. I don't really remember, but I think it was called Fear or something like that. And there was a woman in her bathroom, and it was like all these things that she like something, you know, something was behind her, something, but nothing was ever there. It was just like what her brain was kind of conjuring up, you know, like, you know, in these fearful scenarios. And I just remember the tension of the music and just the way everything was done. You saw nothing, you heard nothing, but it was all of that just kind of scare.
I feel like your brain made up a short movie right now.
I can assure you I did not. I'm almost certain we watched this.
Yeah. I do that. I do that sometimes. Like I'm outside with the dog, and then she'll hear something, and I'm like, what was that? You know, then I'm like, here comes the bear, or here comes the
right?
coyote. You know what I mean? Now I'm like ready. I'm like, get in the house, and I'm like standing out there like ready to go to battle with nothing but my imagination, which I always
Today's not the day. Today's not the day.
Oh yeah. So so recently I've been like kind of working and playing with the idea of doing some stuff with my essays that I write. With recording them, and like I might just pay Emily to read them. I don't know. I was like, how I can't, like, I don't know if I could narrate something as well as you do. It's incredible.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So like, I mean, so you had like a musical background, right?
Yeah. So my undergraduate degree is in vocal performance, so opera, basically.
Yeah.
And so I've done that, you know, for over 2 decades now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, so using my voice in non-usual ways, I guess, was kind of always part of my life, my adult life.
Yeah.
Also, opera is over dramatic as well.
Yeah, sure.
Very over dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, man, it just, I don't know. It fits so well. It's so a new host, right? A new host.
Yep.
Listening to that one and then like Luke putting in like the sound effects. I'm like,
dude. Well, I think that's too, because that was the first one we heard that he put together. Because we sent the stuff to him, and we basically, what he was supposed to do was video himself going through the editing process so that I could replicate it. And then he texts us back and he goes, so basically true to form, I've done a whole lot more to it, and I don't think Emily can replicate this, no offense. And I'm like, well, let's hear it. Let's hear it. We want to hear it. And we were like, oh my God.
He got excited, decided he was going to do Luke Rodriguez things. Yeah. And I said, yeah, sure. Let's just hear it. Let's see what you do. And then when I heard it, I was sort of like you, Trev. I got to experience the same thing you got to experience, right? I had wrote these so many of them are very old, and I haven't gone back and revisited him. I couldn't even remember a new host. Like I didn't remember how it ended. That's how long it's been since I've visited it. So I got to hear it with her narrating it, which is her own, take on it, and then Luke's take on like what the sounds should be. And so it was like almost like a whole new production for me, which was very cool.
Yeah, that's got to be an interesting like to hear it come to. I know like we shot most of a short that I wrote one time years ago. This is like probably 15 years ago now, and to see it come to life and to see how these actors like play into it and what the director's vision, like I was like, whoa, this is rad,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was exciting to me because full transparency, when I'm recording, I'm literally in our closet next to our dirty clothes hamper, because that's where I can get the best sound, so like the level that I'm creating it was not the level that I was envisioning the editing would come at, it just, they didn't match, And so like to hear what Luke created out of me, do-de-do going into my closet and recording some stuff was just so night and day different. And I think that's what's exciting about this as a whole. It's like Jacob creates these stories and walks away from it. I record myself doing something and I walk away from it. And then we hand it off to Luke and it's like, what? And it sounds like, I don't know. It just sounds, he makes us look good.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. Does it feel good to be doing something like creatively again with Luke?
It felt a lot more fun than I anticipated, right?
Yeah.
Because it did start off as just like, let's force myself to get this out. This will allow Emily to practice and have like a portfolio, if you will. And then once, Luke's in the fold again, it's like, this was a lot of fun. It felt very fresh. It felt like the old days of MH. But I think this one's going to be a little more sustainable with like, just a monthly release. It's like everyone has their role of like what you're in charge of doing, and you basically get free reign to be creative in that avenue. And I think that's going to be good for all of us.
Now,
so yeah, it's been a lot more fun.
Are you currently writing?
Yeah, I'm getting. Luckily, I have such a backlog.
You do have.
We're good.
Yeah,
we're good for a while.
I like. There's a few that I remember, like little pieces of it. I'm like, oh, I can't wait for that one.
Yeah. So the backlog's there. I've got some ideas floating. I'm just going to see which one kind of jumps out at me, first and tackle that. But like last week, I just. I think I've wrapped up the longest story I've written yet.
Oh, yeah? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Now, does that one have a title?
Yeah, it's called The Old Dirt Road.
Oh, that's right.
Spoiler. Who knows when that one's going to land?
Might be a while.
Yeah, it might be a minute. But.
That's cool. Oh, if you need a pair of eyes just to
hey, I always do because I hit it once and then I kind of walk away. So
yeah. So let's take the Passenger real quick, right?
Okay.
How many pages was that to write?
That's like what, a page and a half, 2 tops?
I think
Not
when
even?
I like
was it that short?
that's another thing. We like upload digital copies of the stories on Patreon too. And I want to say it ended up being 3, like it hit onto a
3
third page.
pages.
It's short. It's really short.
Very short.
And now when you, Emily, when you record, do you stop and go back if you mess something up, or do you just pause, let a little more like space happen and then start over? How do you do that?
I am very much almost like Jacob's writing style. It's like I want to just do it and I don't want to over criticize or over edit myself.
Yeah.
So I'll just like read it to myself a couple times before I ever hit record and kind of like get a feeling for what I want. And on that one in particular, I pretty much just read it. And only went back to record something if I had legitimately like messed up a word.
Yeah.
And then I gave it space, re-recorded it, and when I send it off to Luke, I just say, "Hey, you'll hear,
The word.
where I messed up something. Here's the script."
Yeah. Have fun. Will you do the whole thing over, or will you just do that one
that one little line? Yeah. Because sometimes it'll be, if I can hear like a plosive, is a little extra. That's like the p and the b. If I hear that's like too much, or even if I just mispronounce something, I'll be like, let me just get into that little line. And
I'm really good at mispronouncing things. It's well, I think Jacob, we're gonna go way back to the first, like one of the first episodes of this podcast from 2017 when I was with you and Luke. Remember we were all kind of talking about like speech training, and you know what I mean, like from when you were younger, and like I had. Like I was like partially deaf when I was younger. So like sometimes when I just start ranting, like I'll start to slur because of that. You know what I mean? From back then. So I'll do something and then I'm like, yeah, this sounds good. And then like something that was supposed to say can will sound like can't because I slurred it out. And I'm like, so I have to go back and work on things. And I've been doing, I've really been pushing myself to do that stuff kind of thing a lot more. And just like my writing, whenever I read somebody that's like really like prolific, I get discouraged. So listening to you do this, I was super discouraged, and I'm just going to quit everything I do.
Don't do that. I mean, part of what I had to go through in college with doing opera stuff, like you take specific diction courses too. So I took a diction course in Italian. I took one in French. I took one in English. I took one in German. That's in addition to just learning the language, with the language department. So you're also learning diction for a singer, so it is all very over the top and over dramatic because when you sing it, things sound completely different than when you say it, so just, I joke about this on one of our, Behind the Veil Patreon things too. It's like a mouth feel. And Jacob's like, okay. But it's like the way something feels, when you get
in your mouth. I don't know what kind of college classes she took. They were different than mine. That's all I'm saying.
She took one about how to cheat at cards. I know that.
I mean,
hey now.
It's a questionable college she went to.
But, everything, even, and this is actually like my mom, I grew up going to theater things around town because my mom was very involved with local theater. So there was also some things that I've just picked up and learned from her too about, moments in a scene, if the intensity of the scene is, getting high, doing things on a specific line and actually going opposite of that and going low, or, just basically messing with your intonation in such a way that seems opposite of what the moment calls for. But then when you like hear it play out, you're like, oh, because it is kind of jarring. And I think that's what's fun to play with recording these stories and playing with the speed of things and with those intonation pieces, because these stories are jarring.
Yeah.
And so to play that up a little bit, I definitely lean into the you're not going to be able to predict what I do next.
Yeah. No, yeah. No, I like that. And I think that keeps people's attention spans while listening to something. You know?
Yeah.
Like
it's nice too, because I write words that I don't say very well often.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that she's doing it and not me.
Caliginous. Yeah. You know, I learned I always had a it's like a V. If there's a V in the middle of a sentence, which is funny because my name is Trev, right? I like have like a, I don't know, like I have a hard time with words like that, like, or like it sucks. I have to like sit there and like practice how to say words sometimes, and it's just like, oh man, why do I torture myself? So last year, for actually it was about this time last year, I had interviewed. There was an art community at the end of my street. They bought this like property. It had like a huge mansion. The mansion had a very seedy background with the Catholic Church. Yeah, it was. So they bought it, and like there's 2 dormitories. So their idea was building this like art community, like a co-op kind of place, you know. And unfortunately, the building burnt down. But it was really crazy. But when I met them and stuff, they were promoting a haunt that they were putting on for Halloween. Good. And it was like a whole weekend thing, and it was a drive-through haunt. So like you'd come up to like a barricade, you know, and your radio dial was dialed in to a radio station. And so I had talked to them, and then afterwards they're like, "Hey, would you want to be part of it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And they're like, "All right, cool. We've got 2 parts." And the lady was like, "I think this one part would be really good for you." I'm like, "All right, cool." And I was like, "All right, she's gonna email me like a couple lines." Bro, I was the narrator. But here's the thing: it was like a 60 minutes like narration. So like I had to have a newscaster voice.
Yeah.
So I did it twice, and it sucks because like it was. I mean, I had it's weird when you only get your lines. Because you don't have much context with it, you know. So, but I had to do it in like, you know, I was like, what was the person's name? I don't know, but I'd be like, you know, I'm Jacob Hopkins, and this is, you know what I mean? Like I had to like do like that newscaster thing. So I did one like that, and then I did one with my normal rasp, but like a little bit less than my normal rasp. And they liked that one the best. I was like, oh, that's weird. Okay, like you think 60 minutes, baby. Yeah. I really had to like when I do the news thing I was telling you guys about for music, like I kind of take away my rasp for that too, because like I'm trying to make it, you know, it's really weird. I call it my mom voice. Like when you meet someone's mom, like that's the voice you use, you know, like hi Miss. Hi, Mrs. Hopkins. How are you? You know, something like that. But anyway, so
gee willikers, guys.
Yeah. So anyway, so I did this thing, and like I like narrated the whole thing, like the whole like so, and this thing played on this radio station, like a low frequency radio station, on a loop for like 48 hours of just me talking.
That's like, wild. That's fun though. Like projects like that, I think are just really fun. You get something out of every single one of those, you know?
Yeah. I wish they had sent me they didn't send me a copy of it, and then the place burnt down before I could ask for one. So I was like, oh,
dang.
Shit. But like I there was one where I forgot what the word was, but they were like, oh, can you just re-record this? And now I really got in my head about it. You know what I mean? Because I was like, oh God, but you can't let that get in your head. You gotta like kind of. So
I mean, it's true. I mean, that's part of my thing too. I always call myself a recovering perfectionist because, you know, that was really debilitating for me for so many years, just that perfectionism. And, you know, to the point where you actually prevent yourself from even starting a project like this.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, I'm not good enough. I'm faking. But ultimately, you know, you just kind of have to quiet those little voices down and just be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm here. I'm doing this thing. It's going to bring me joy. I hope that somebody gets something out of it. I hope somebody enjoys it. But you know, at a certain point, you just have to press
shit or get off the pot, as we say.
It's true.
So do you have complete creative control over this? Like, do you not hear it until it's done, or do you?
So fun part is I literally just wrote up a collaborators agreement with the intent of like, man, we're going to put it out in the universe. We're going to like make this, manifest it into something huge and big. And as part of that agreement, we each get creative control 100% of each part of our project. So
That's
I
awesome.
have 100% of the stories. Like, obviously I'm open to suggestions. If they're like, what about, like, I'll hear it, no problems.
Yeah.
Then when it goes to Emily, she's 100. I don't even listen to what she says. And then she's got 100%. And then of course it goes off to Luke, and then he finalizes it 100% the way he wants to finalize it. And I think you just let everyone have that full buy-in. They want the final project to be as amazing as it could be. And I think, I don't know, it's just interesting to watch it go through the filter.
Yeah, I mean, it helps knowing the players involved, right?
Right, yeah. Everyone's got the best intentions for this project to succeed.
Yeah, and you all know each other pretty well. It's not like when like Stephen King would be like, yeah, you can do The Shining, and Kubrick fucks it up. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, or even Lawnmower Man. I think that's like the most hated piece that he has out there because it went so far off the rails.
For sure.
Yeah, so like that's cool. And because I've always lived by like, yeah, you're the artist, you do your, like when I would go get tattooed, I'd give him an idea.
Absolutely.
And if he wanted to draw something up, fine. If he wanted to freehand it, fine. I'm just like, you're the artist, do your thing, you know?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
This is the theme, this is the bumper rails, otherwise you go.
Yeah. So I like that. That's cool.
I think it's the best approach if you're dealing with like any kind of creativity, right? I think you need to be smart about who you allow to, collaborate with, I guess, in this case, and then just have full trust in that they're like, even with tattoos, right? Because you're never going to get rid of that. I mean, you can, but like, whoosh.
Yeah.
You need to trust that artist.
I would never give someone I didn't trust that. Yeah, go ahead. Like I wouldn't let anybody I didn't trust touch me with a needle. Never mind. Like just do whatever you want. Yeah.
Right.
Here's some ink, a needle. Just you go, man.
Do your thing.
And sometimes that level of trust, it can be scary, because like as I'm going through stuff, I'm like, well, what do you think if I did it like this? And he's just like, I mean, this is kind of what I thought when I wrote it, but it's up to you. It's almost like too much freedom.
Yeah. So you get the idea that maybe you're changing it, right?
Yeah. Or that because I'm a people pleaser and because I want, the people around me to be happy with me and what I've done, it's a little bit of that too. It's like, oh, well, we've got one that we're going to be recording here soon. And, I'm like, well, I'm thinking about doing it this way. I'm thinking about doing that way. And Jacob's really like, okay, I trust you. And I'm just like, what?
I came to the realization once I was going to put these out that once you put out these stories, as much as I might want to kind of control the narrative, like it's gone for me, right? So each person who reads it is going to read it and they're going to put their own voices in their own heads and they're going to have their own thoughts about it, love it, hate it, whatever. So like I need to not be precious about it and let it fly.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to approach it. Like I talk to musicians about like when they like, hey, once it's out in the ether, it's not mine anymore. It's everyone's. It's however someone
songs are
wants.
so bad about it, right? Because everyone will find their own meaning.
Exactly, and I do that all the time. And then I'm like, oh man, I hope I got this right. When I talk to an artist, I'm like, hey, this song, like, was this what kind of where you were good? Because like from that perspective, like. I want my meaning out of it, but I also need to know theirs. So,
right. You're like, is this about the day your dog died? And they're like, no, it's about my wedding.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, my bad.
That took a turn.
Yeah. Whoops.
Oh, no. Yeah. And so how does it feel like, because we're doing that, right? With giving each other the creative control of their own thing. I guess like it doesn't bleed into anything, right? It doesn't bleed into like any kind of turmoil or anything like that. But like you guys are still collaborating, right? Is that? Yeah. I mean, you guys. Look, I know you personally, so like I know you guys are like team Hopkins all the way through and through with everything, and that's awesome. But like, how does it feel to do something creatively like this together?
I mean, honestly, it's pretty easy. Like, I mean, our general, collaboration with each other in life is a pretty easy collaboration. Like it's not that hard, but I personally feel like, we put our hat on to deal with podcast things and then we take it off and, talk about like what's for dinner. You know what I mean? Like they feel separate, so it's like, I don't get like even just all the social media stuff that we were working on this past week. It was like we had a little block of time where we kind of took care of that and then went about our day, and I don't know. That's how I've kind of felt. It feels separate.
Yeah. I mean, part of it, honestly, was like, cool, this is an excuse for me to get my writing out. Number two is it's an excuse to force Emily to, practice her voiceover work and have a portfolio of such. And I'm going to be honest with you, Trev. I thought, maybe that's all it ever is, right? It's just this excuse that lives on the internet. Maybe a handful of people see it. And then it really wasn't until Luke started putting the magic on it. And I hadn't ever heard Emily do the stories at all. And so hearing that delivery, and I was like, that actually might be a thing, right? Like, this is a little bit above what I anticipated it being. And so then it was like, cool.
Here we go.
But really, like hearing the final product actually only just gives me more confidence in it, right? It was like already going to be, because honestly, when I approached her about it, we've been talking about it for like 2 years.
Long time.
I was like, all right, we're going to do it before October. It's got to happen before October. Let's launch it before October. Everybody's ready for it. I thought she'd kind of be like, just because Emily doesn't love scary stories. She doesn't love horror as a genre.
Yeah.
And I was like, does she really want to read these things? I don't know. But she was like, I guess game, I'll try it. Right. And so it turns out she's pretty good at it.
Yeah. It's funny because like when he was doing modern horrors, the amount of scary movies that I was subjected to, I mean,
in that giant theater room that you have.
I just was like, it's funny because like kind of a joke in our house is like, if I'm out one night, Jacob and Rowan will watch a scary movie. That's because, awesome. She enjoys horror and scary stuff. So that's always the joke. Like, oh, mama's not going to be home. Great. We can watch something scary. Cause like I'm a total scaredy cat. I've gotten softer, like I've gotten better about it over the years, because of him. But yeah, I mean, it's not something that I ever sought out.
Mm-hmm. And going back to what we started and what we were talking about in the beginning of this was like, I think horror writing is worse than a film because you're using your own imagination.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was and still am to an extent that person who turns off the light and goes a little bit faster to the next room where I could turn the light on, like I am that person.
Yeah. That's funny. I love it. The dynamic. I've spent time with the both of you, and I want everyone to know this because like I used to come out to see you guys. I'm like, I need like my batteries recharged. Like, you know what I mean? So I'd come hang out with you guys and it was awesome. But like, yeah, it's funny how the cliche opposites attract, right? Like,
sure, yeah.
Some of the horror stuff, yeah. But so let's talk about the Patreon a little bit because that's awesome. You guys fired it right out of the gate with it. I wish I did that.
It was the first thing Jacob said. It was, I think really it was because of hearing what Luke had, wrapped up for us in an episode. And we were like, oh gosh, like that's really when Jacob was like, you know what, let's get this going. We'll make that the first thing that we do and we'll take care of other social media after. And I think it was the right call.
Sure. I learned from, the MH days. I learned from watching you, some of our mutual buddies, like the Horror Virgin and all that. I watched them. I was like, you know what? The real trick is not to wait till you think you hit a magical mark where you deserve to have a Patreon. Yeah. It's like, that's not your decision to make. It's for like the audience's decision to make. So I was like, let's launch it straight out the gate. Let's put some things in there that'll also hold us accountable. So we're in the practice of it. So when things get chaotic, if they do get chaotic, we're prepared. And then it's just like, it was I'm sure, Trev, the most hectic part of Patreon is just getting the damn thing set up.
Yeah.
Like once you're set up, it's a lot easier.
That than promoting it.
Yeah, it sucks for sure. But I set it up immediately and we right out the gate. It's not barn burner or anything, but 2 people immediately signed up to be patrons, like right then and there. And I was like, okay, man, like I'm glad we did it this way. Mm-hmm. So it's covering, at the bare minimum, it's covering our hosting fees.
Yeah. So that was something like because I was so like, how dare I ask people to support the pod? Yeah. You know how it goes. And like when we finally did it, and I was like, the first year I took all the money in that funded our our evening with event that we put on where
That's perfect.
Yeah. So like, and then I was like, the producer, Chris, he's actually, he does video work too. So he edited the whole thing together, and I was like, hey, like everyone who's on the Patreon, like, can you make them executive producers? You know, so like every project we do now, if like Patreon, our patrons are part of it now. They're part of a production. You know what I mean? So like the next project we're doing, which I don't know if I've talked about it or not, and I'm not gonna right now, but I'll tell you later. Like, kind of like but like I was like, I'm gonna put like they're all gonna be producers on it. Like that's just how it's gonna be. Like it's because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to pay for this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So and like and the evening with like it paid for basically the whole thing. Like
which is the thing like you say you couldn't have done without that kind of support.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I think if people, I'm coming to realize if people enjoy what you're doing or they find some sort of value in what you're doing, they're more than happy to help fund that in some way. I think it actually brings a lot of people a lot of happiness to help fund people doing creative works. And I'm with you. It's something, I don't know if I'm like over it, but definitely just try to ignore it and just say, cool, that's not my decision to make.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I don't get to make decisions with other people's money.
Right. Now tell me what's can we talk about like what's offered on the Patreon?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, it was like I said, Jacob, did all the putting it together part of things, but
almost like you know what you're doing.
What was that?
It's almost like he knows what he's doing when it comes
almost
to
like he knows. You know what? That was the thing. Like I was like, listen, you've done this before. I have not. And yeah, granted, things have changed a little bit over the years, but not that much. Like you still know more than I do. But yeah, so some things on there. I know we've got a Discord channel with a couple of Patreon folks. So that's one thing. I think that's at the base level, right?
Yeah, I think there's like there's a lot. There's like the Discord. You at certain levels you get access to just the digital copies of the stories, because I know some people, as much as they want to hear them, they probably also would like to read them, and just to see, it could be fun to see if you agree with how Emily presented the story or not, right? Like maybe you want to read it a different way.
Yeah. My favorite thing that we offer at the middle tier are these Behind the Veil episodes where we talk into the making of each episode. So we've got 2 Behind the Veil episodes on there so far, and where we talk about The Passenger, and then we talk about the A New Host. So it's fun because that's, just me and Jacob asking each other questions, about your process. We talk a little bit about Luke's process. We'll more than likely have him on a Behind the Veil episode at some point too. But it's fun for us to kind of just break it down, because so far we've only recorded those episodes after we've heard Luke's cut of it. So he's about to have a cut of our 3rd episode, which will come out in October.
So by the time this is out, it'll be out.
So by the time this is out, that one's going to be out. And I'm kind of waiting to do the Behind the Veil because I want to hear what he does, because I react to it differently, right? So that's probably the most exciting thing on the Patreon that I think we have. And then what we would like to eventually have, merch and stuff like that. So there are some, merch discounts for future products that we may bring into the world. And there's some fun stuff on there. And
trying to stay proactive as opposed to reactive with this stuff. I feel like if you can stay a little bit proactive, even though it feels silly to offer discounts on things that you don't have,
Right.
It just like saves the headache, for later when, perhaps that happens. And I think you do need to, you see so many stories about like, music, I'm sure, Trev, or people are just like so gung-ho about this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And they basically speak it into existence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's kind of what, there's a reason why. It's not just silliness, it's the drive there. So I feel like if you do that, you kind of drive yourself to that point. And so we're with the Patreon. We're trying to, I'm even looking at maybe like an extra tier up just to see. But it's like, what is and here's where the trick is, right? What am I willing to do that I know I can do despite the ADHD craziness on a regular basis, right? What can I make sure that I can deliver?
Well, I mean, y'all are busy too, right? You've got the is it racing raccoon, running raccoon?
So was doing it, let it go for a little bit. Man, I still dream about putting on a couple of races though. But I I'm still doing a lot of running though.
Yeah, I know you're doing enough for me. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, just did a 50-mile week. Trev, where were you at?
Golly, come on, man. Oh, and Emily, you're out there running too, right?
I do. Yeah. I do a little bit of the working out. And the
She's
running.
about to do a stupid race where you have to carry a kettlebell for a mile, time after time after time, and it's an elimination race.
Up to 31 miles. So, yeah, it's...
You guys are insane.
Listen, the reason why I signed up for that one is because he was doing a crazy race and there was a flyer on his truck. I felt like I had to do it.
I mean, yeah, that's how it happens. So.
That's how it works.
Somehow I'm to blame for this.
Yeah. Oh man, and then you still have the studio, the Thai.
Yep, still doing traditional Thai bodywork. So that's actually what brings the bills in, right?
Yeah.
Emily's got her full-time job in ed tech. So like, would it, in an ideal world, would this be number one? Hell yeah, it would be, I think,
yeah.
because I'm like, my body feels great, right? But like, do I want to be doing like traditional Thai body work when I'm 70? Not really. I prefer not to. So.
Yeah, that was, I still talk about that with that session you did. Like, I was like, it's like jujitsu, but you don't get hurt.
Right. Yeah, that's what I tell people. It's like friendly jujitsu, right? It's like healing jujitsu.
Oh man, how uneven I was after you did like one half. Like I was like, this is incredible. Like I couldn't believe how uneven my body was. Yeah, it's just wonderful, man. It's like great. But so this project is, and monthly, like that's, and the thing, and I always tell people this now, like people who I talk to that want to start a podcast or relaunch a podcast, or I'm like, just start monthly.
Yes.
Make sure the commitment's there. And then if you want to add more, you can, but it's better to be like, we're a monthly podcast and sometimes you get extra, as opposed to saying we're a weekly podcast and only show up monthly, you know?
I mean, that it's huge. Cause like we actually asked Luke, like how long does it take you, to edit an episode? And he's like, 6 to 8 hours. And I was like, man, 6 to 8 hours is a lot better on a monthly basis than any more frequently than that. And that's another thing too, is like with the behind the veil stuff on Patreon, that stuff is not edited. That is us literally just talking, so there's nothing to that. So he doesn't even have to, worry about that part of things. But it definitely feels achievable, right? It feels like an achievable goal.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And so I saw a video of Luke talking about this.
Yes.
Right?
Again, he made us look good, man. Because
because I know
it's not my closet.
Like, who was he talking to? He wasn't talking to anybody.
He wasn't talking to anybody, but it looks like somebody's interviewing, right?
It looks like he had a producer asking him questions.
Yeah, he is a fucking pro.
That boy can't do nothing normal, right? Like you give it to him, it's got to go to like the max.
So that was what was funny is he sent us the initial video. I put it on socials, and then we were like, well, let's go ahead and this will be our first YouTube video for the Caliginous Chronicles channel. And so I upload it, and he goes, hey, can you take that down real quick? And we're like, yeah, sure. Why? And he's like, I got a 6K version. And we're like, who needs a 6K version?
I was like, Luke, like everyone's watching this on their phones, man. Like 6K ain't doing nothing for them on their phones.
Oh my gosh.
Luke.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. He is so meticulous. Dude, I was watching that video and I'm watching it and I'm like, I'm watching him. You know what I mean? I'm like, I want mess up, motherfucker. Mess up.
Yeah. It would have never made it.
Would have never made it to you seeing it.
His eyes never move. He did his own junket, dude. That's how amazing is that? Oh man, I'm so happy you guys are like doing this, and I mean it's to again. I feel like we're coming up on 8 years I've known you now, like since the podcast.
10 years since their first Modern Horrors they figured out too.
Coming up to the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So it's crazy. It's funny. I don't know if you knew this, Jacob, but like before I moved to Lawrence County, right?
Yeah.
I was in Massachusetts. I'm in the same apartment I was in when I was.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I came back to like the same place. It's pretty cool.
Full circle.
Yeah. So, but like, you know, and I tell people like when I talk about like how, you know, when people like, how did you get into podcasting? It was because of you guys. You guys encouraged the encouragement you guys gave me to get out there and do it. Like, just do it, you know, and gave me the opportunity to write for your website. You know, you guys like and just how welcoming you all were. Like, you know, like it was, I found people right away. Like,
yeah.
So
I mean, it's been fun watching your podcast grow and like seeing that you kill it and you've got like all these crazy things. Like, bro, the fact that you have like a record club thing going on, it never ceases to blow my mind. It doesn't matter how many times you'll post about it. Yeah. My mind is always blown like it's the first time I'm seeing it.
I know,
like,
that's
Trev's got a record club.
I fell into that. I was a member of that club since 2017.
But you know what? You kind of created your own opportunity though, you know, by doing this.
Yeah. So yeah, when Mark asked me to take it over, I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm gonna screw it up. But same thing, Emily. I had to like yell at myself, like stop thinking like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's true. You do. You have to eventually just be like, you know what? I'm going to do something that I want to do, and I want to do this, you know?
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah. And it's fun to bring this project back up, even though it wasn't a project, but we were talking about those stories so many years ago. And it was just like maybe I'm going to do something with them at some point.
Did you ever put any of those online just to read?
No. I think one exists online, I think. Yeah. And it exists on the MH website.
I mean, he had tossed around the idea of even, you know, self-publishing it, you know, and just, you know,
I
paper
sent
form.
It to like one or two publishers. And then I had talked to an editor and I said, hey, I feel like these all should live together and I should keep total control, because the common wisdom out there is to just get published, right? Just send it off to a magazine, get out there, do your free thing. Like, you know, the whole, you know, publicity thing, whatever. But I was like, no, I just don't feel right about that. Like, and like, no one's going to, and I totally understand this. No one is going to publish a collection of short stories by a nobody. Yeah. It's just not going to happen, right? My name's not Stephen King, so it's not happening. And I can accept that. Yeah. So the self-publishing route, all that thought, and just for whatever reason, just didn't feel right. And then suddenly this idea, and I was like, that's the one. It allows me to keep total control. And then now seeing the final product, it's way cooler than a collection of short stories would have been. Yeah.
And you know what? Like, I know you stepped away from like podcasting for a gap there, but people remember you, and that's your format, right? People know
they do. I nuked almost all my personal socials, so I almost kind of wish I didn't, so I could at least be like, "Hey guys," but like oops. But I think they'll eventually, you know, hopefully through like, you know, the grapevine, we'll find out about it, and I don't know. I'll give you, in case it hasn't happened yet on your podcast, we may, hint, hint, wink, wink, secret. Me and Luke may drop a 10-year anniversary episode of MH, so it may happen. We'll see.
This is
you'll need to like prepare the liver for.
Oh, I can't do that. But.
So, yeah, right.
The old days.
Yeah. Well, remember that one episode with Luke? Yeah. This is gonna drop the week of Halloween. So
okay,
yeah. So we'll so you got time. You got time that might speak itself into existence, like you just, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Speak it into existence.
Yeah.
Where can people find the Caliginous Chronicles? Did I say
Nailed
it?
Right? Nailed it.
Yeah, totally did.
I got it. Caliginous. Like
yeah. So we have pretty much put it on every single podcast platform you can think of. So that was one benefit of getting the Patreon started early, was that we were able to, you know, we went ahead and took a leap of faith and said, okay, we're going to do Libsyn. We're going to, you know, pay to like easily put it on all of the podcast platforms that we can. And
What's
then our
that, Libsyn?
first Patreon came in the next day.
Yeah, we went with Libsyn just to start off with.
Oh, it's a platform, so you don't need like a website or anything to host.
Exactly. Because I just didn't want to get into that yet. Because remember, at this time, Luke is not fully involved, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So I'm like, let's make it as easy as possible.
You don't have a giant empire that got built in a night. Yeah, I know how that goes. Yeah.
So it made it easy because then you put it there and then it releases to all the major podcast platforms. But I feel like most people have been listening to it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those are the typical ones.
And then the social media?
Yeah, so we're we got a TikTok.
Sure.
We got a TikTok because I wasn't on TikTok personally. So we have a TikTok, we have Instagram, we have a Facebook group. Those are probably the main ones. Obviously, we'd love for people to join us over on Patreon. But yeah, that's kind of where we are right now, where people can find us.
And you're probably going to end up talking to Emily on most of those.
Yeah,
I might hop in on like one, but definitely not TikTok. You're not going to find me over on TikTok. I'm sorry. So.
Yeah, I guess we should have added social media manager to my contract.
Social media manager right over here. Yeah. So
I'm trying to find hold on, I wrote it down. I was like, I need to make this sound really good. It's a social media community manager. That's what I'm looking for.
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
See, this is why you have to have a Patreon, so eventually somebody can have money to do that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then we obviously also started the YouTube channel with Luke's inaugural video for us.
Which will probably be all Luke, to be honest, with his fancy
he's got good
8K
stuff.
cameras and shit.
8 million K camera.
Insane. Yeah. We just started doing like video clips and stuff because of this platform that I'm using right now. And because it uploads everything to 4K. And so we had a TikTok for like a year and a half with nothing on it. So I just finally like started putting the video clips on there and like, and like YouTube. And then when I don't have like, if I'm doing like a throwback thing, I just make something up, like a graphic that has like different little video clip with like just like pictures and stuff like that with the montage.
Look at you.
I know, I've come a long way.
You've come a long way, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many resources, like I've been using Canva a lot. There's just so many resources that make you look good,
I love it.
Make you look like you know what you're doing.
Trev looks good. Look at him. This is why we have the video. We can tell that he looks good. Don't be silly.
No, I use all these things to make me look good. Trust me. I tell everybody, they're like, what's the key? I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know. I tell
have a sexy voice and a sexy bald head. That's the key.
I tell everybody, like, you got to be crazy. Like, I'm constantly working. There was a night at work where I had nothing to do. I worked 12-hour shifts, and I built the website. In one night. I was like, I'm just going to do this. There's nothing going on. We can't do anything. I'm just going to do this,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, this was an absolute delight, and
my gosh.
I miss you both. And
yes, sir. We miss you, man.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you guys are doing this project, and I can't wait for the upcoming episodes.
Yay.
Yeah, Trev. Hey, thanks for having us, man.
Of course.
Thank you.
Doors always open. So
be careful what you ask.
Let's say,
that's all right. That's all right.
We'll talk to you about whatever, whenever.
I know that. I don't care. Thanks again.
Thanks, Trev.
All right, and that's the show. I want to thank Jacob and Emily again for being today's guests on the Struggling Artist Podcast. In the show notes, you will find links to find the Caliginous Chronicles. I want to thank Chris Chavez for being producer of the podcast, and mostly he's producing a lot of stuff over on the Patreon for us. Deeply appreciate him for everything he does. Follow Chris's podcast, 716 The Sound on Instagram. I also want to thank our new video producer, Jeff Bousquet, who is part of the Turntable episodes. Jeff's been helping us out with some new stuff. He is now a producer, and you guys should go follow him on Instagram as well, and that is at JRBimage. Thank you to State Line Records for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you to the band Loser Circle for allowing us to use their song, The Great Illusion of Time, off of their album Took Long Enough, for the theme song to this podcast. Everybody over at Patreon supporting us over there, thank you so much for everything you do. You want to become a patron, you want to see what we're all about over there. We're doing a lot of things. We just started a new show called Lists with an exclamation point. You want to check out that show, you want to check out Struggling Artist Radio, and chopping it up, head over to patreon.com/podcast TSA, and you will be able to see what we have going on over there. Please join up. It'll be a lot of fun, I promise. Thank you to everybody who listens, who shares, who gives us feedback. It is much appreciated. And we're constantly trying to evolve the podcast, right? We want to grow it. We want new people to be on it. We love when you all send us recommendations on who to reach out to as guests or to be guests. It's really is. And like just the fact that y'all, this is like, where are we? We're closing on year 4 of the relaunch. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. I can't believe it. Thank you all for this. Seriously, thank you. If you want to reach out to us, you can email me, Trev at thestrugglingartistpodcast.com, or you could text us or give us a call and leave a voicemail, 774-570-1552. That is the hotline number. No one will ever answer that number. They'll never answer the call. They'll never write you back unless you ask something specific, and it might take a few days because we don't keep the phone on constantly. But again, the hotline, the Struggling Artist Hotline, 774-570-1552. All right, it's time to get out of here, and we don't have a song to play. However, we do have a clip from the Caliginous Chronicles, episode 3. The story is called Witchfinder. I hope you all enjoy it. Happy Halloween to all you happy Halloweeners. Until next week, take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you then.
Your lackey is preoccupied. He will be the first to be purified. The word was spat like poison. As if on cue, screams of pain filled the void of silence that had fallen over the hamlet. Jarred out of his stupor, Elias burst past the woman into the open air. He found Jonas strung between their 2 horses, bound by hands and feet. The beasts were being driven apart, and young Jonas began to scream for mercy. Elias was in utter disbelief that these charlatans could be so bold. There was no love for Jonas, but the disrespect to his honor would not stand. A loud pop emitted from Jonas's body as his joints were torn asunder. Overwhelmed by the pain, he fell unconscious. It was in the moment that Elias pulled his knife and charged the nearest villager. He buried up to the hilt in the man's neck. The blade scraped against bone, and the witchfinder's bloodlust was unleashed.